the inside.
Spray relief.
Comfort level. Can we make your bed today? The Mattress Factory.
Closing all of a sudden.
I'm sharing this with us.
Mr. Santel, now I'm just a small town politician, and I don't really know nothing about no video games. But it seems to me like this here game features vampires snatching up women, and that could be a problem. Because I don't want people, especially children, to pretend to be vampires, break into houses, kidnap party girls who just want to sing and dance. Seems like that could be a problem for this country.
Your Honor, thank you so much for having me here today, and I'm so excited to be able to speak about many of the positive family values that Night Trap has. While there might be an illusion, if you will, that this will cause individuals to do those terrible things, the game has a very strong police presence, and we feel that that police-forward presence is one of the better aspects of this game.
Now, I'm trying to understand. So, what do the police do in this game exactly? Are they vampires as well?
No. The elite members of the SCAT team, or the
I'm sorry. SCAT team?
That is correct. That is the SCAT team. They are in charge of protecting the inhabitants of the house because so many women and teenagers have gone missing. It is because of them that they are able to foist the individuals of this. Really, what we're talking about is an 80s fun time for the whole family.
So you would say this is also some sort of family-oriented game?
Yes. This is about a family dynasty, if you will. They've been vampires for a very long time. No one has been able to take them down.
It seems to me like this game is not at all for children, and I would hate if someone's niece or nephew playing on their Nintendo Entertainment System happened to find this game and start becoming interested in vampiracy.
I understand that. This game is not on a Nintendo console. I have a quote right here from the vice president of the Nintendo Corporation that said that this game will never be on a Nintendo console. Not now, not ever.
Well then, how do you explain this?
Night Trap, you gotta watch out behind you. Night Trap.
That's not how it goes. It goes, Night Trap, watch out behind you. Night Trap. The first lyric is, Night Trap, bad boys will find you. Night Trap. Bad boys will find you.
That's right, Jesse. This game is filled with bad boys.
So many bad boys. This is a game that I realized while playing this, that this game influenced me in ways that I didn't expect. And a lot of my just everyday conversational skills comes from the game Night Trap.
Sure, this was a very informative game. It's where you've learned to love security cam footage.
It's where I learned that for some reason, in the back of my head, I will randomly just think or sometimes say, why you wear those shades at night? And I had no idea it came from this game. And to me, that means this must have been, I think I was 13 when this game came out, and it must have stayed in my psyche because I never owned this game. I never had a Sega CD, but I had friends who had one, and I remember it had the exact same vibe as if we had found a porno.
Like you're not supposed to be watching it. It had those Sega CD graphics where it's like, oh, it's pixelated, which is what early forms of the internet eventually looked like. It was where things were going.
And it's a movie, air quotes, with very attractive women who were kind of just like, oh, help me! And they talked to camera. It had all the same vibes as a Leisure Suit Larry game.
Yes.
Except it wasn't and isn't. And if you play it today, you're like, oh my God, this might be the corniest, cheesiest goofball thing I've ever seen.
It is corny and cheesy and all of those things, but it's a weird full circle world because now we hire actors for video games and do mocap stuff all the time. In fact, many video games are kind of shot like productions like this. I kept playing it being like, this is awful, but it's awful in its execution. But now there's lots of video games like this.
Yeah, in hindsight, it's crazy that this game caused so much controversy at the time. It was caught up in the whole Mortal Kombat violence, but this was like the sexy, like terrible version of like you're kidnapping girls and draining them of blood and it's terrible. And the youth are gonna start doing this kind of thing and look what it's doing to the kids.
They're so two-faced about it because on one hand, they're like, this is a silly video game. Then why are they all going night swimming? Why are they all wearing bathing suits the whole time? Why are they running around in no clothes, dudes?
it's one of those things where it's clearly a game designed not for kids. And at the time, the CD market was one where they were trying to create content for everyone. Like, the story behind this game is fascinating. Let me give you some backstory on this, because it's crazy. This game cost $1.5 million to make and was actually created the same time as another game called Sewer Shark.
Is that Game with Vin Diesel and he's selling you street sharks in the commercial?
No, that's not it at all.
Okay.
No, Sewer Shark takes place in a post-apocalyptic future where environmental destruction has forced most of humanity to live underground. The player takes on the role of a rookie pilot in a band of sewer jockeys whose job it is to exterminate dangerous mutated creatures who keep the vast network of sewers clean for Solar City.
A very one sentence, an elevator pitch if I've ever heard one, Jesse.
Yeah. And it's, again, one of those things where a guy talks to you at camera like, all right, rookie.
Welcome to the sewers, punk. The guy you're replacing, he had that same tough guy smirk on his face that you do, till he hit the wall.
Like Wing Commander. Remember the Wing Commander games?
Yes. At
the time, post Star Wars, where he had really nothing going on, Mark Hamill did Wing Commander.
Sure. Or that Aerosmith game where Aerosmith gives you a gun to go fight the revolution.
Yeah,
he has a gun for you.
It's all part of that era of gaming. This was just at the very, very beginning, because what ends up happening is this game shot here, beautiful Culver City, California.
Wow, amazing. Just in our backyard.
Can't believe it. And it took 6 months to film. And the reasoning, I guess, is because they didn't get it at first. It's the same problem that I had when I first was like, maybe I'll make an FMV game. And it took me forever to realize, oh, this is a whole different beast. And I think it took them the exact same forever, and $1.5 million was I don't got to make this game.
They would only shoot one set piece at a time. So they would shoot everything in like the hallway. And then they would move from the hallway set to the kitchen set. And now we're gonna do all the kitchen scenes, and then we're only gonna do all the foyer scenes. So like, I'm sure they ran into continuity problems, and there's no way you can go backwards and reshoot those scenes. They didn't have the sets anymore.
There's also no way that you would notice in the game, but we'll get to that later.
Sure.
So this was originally shot in 1987.
It's so funny that when you say that, it resonates with me like, yeah, it now makes sense, because it doesn't feel like 1992. It doesn't feel like Bartman and like Neon, whatever the else we were into in the 90s. It feels very 80s.
It wasn't very radical, dude.
No, it was not a radical dude.
The thing about it is, when you think about it in that mentality of it's 1987, the song Night Trap is 1987.
Very 1987.
The look of the characters, very 1987.
Right.
The style of the sets, 80s as hell. And so the problem is, it took this game 5 years to release.
Now, was that the technology? Why did it take so long to come out?
So originally, and this I thought was the craziest thing, is that it was going to release on something called the Nemo, a game system by Hasbro.
And it feels like that's why so many of the choices in the game were like, oh, make the lights super bright. They kept trying to make it not scary, which is where so much of the campiness comes from. If they would have leaned one way or the other, it would have benefited this game so much more.
At the time, I think something that a lot of companies were looking at, Nintendo had the lockdown on kids.
Right.
And Sega had the lockdown on like teens, because it was like, Sonic's cool. And companies were looking for, what is the thing that's gonna get adults? And everyone's trying to get it. Remember how there was Philips CDI?
Yeah, it's where you could play your Zelda games.
And that stuff was geared more towards adults. And PlayStation, I think, was the one that nailed it, especially the way they marketed Final Fantasy VII. That was not for kids. Final Fantasy VII was a game when it was marketed in the 90s as like, yo, this game is gonna blow your balls off if you're man enough to play it.
Oh, I see you over there, CG Tifa Lockhart. You are definitely for a grown-up boy.
And so everyone was trying to find that adult market. And I feel like these games are not creepy enough that it's gonna terrorize a kid because it's goofy, but it's also adulty in that, you know, there's a wink and a nod, and the girls are like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom right now. But there's no nudity, there's nothing truly adult about it at all.
That's what I kept saying to myself when playing this game. I don't think anybody played this game. I think they had hearings in Congress and nobody played this video game.
Johnson, you probably got the hardest job of all in your arcades and other facilities.
First of all, Night Trap isn't out in coin-op, and
Right.
so that's not an issue.
Well, we'll get to that, because what ends up happening is the Hasbro console the Nemo, eventually renamed the Control Vision.
Love it. Rolls right off the tongue.
Well, that's why it was then scrapped.
Sure.
Then Night Trap was going to be sold on this sort of crazy Sony Nintendo hybrid thing that they were trying to work on for a long time, and then that fell through because Sega was like, we got that CD. And so finally, in 1992, 5 years later, it releases on Sega CD.
This feels like the only game I am aware of from the Sega CD. You know what I mean?
It stirred up so much controversy. Yeah.
Right.
It's because that controversy that it's a cult classic. And while many people will say it's one of the worst games ever made, the reviews at the time were like, it's pretty fun. And the crazy thing is that the game is constantly in the zeitgeist of people talking about video games. You may never have played it, you might not know everything about it, but you know it exists, which is pretty impressive considering what it is.
After playing this game, I realized I do not like security camera footage games. It's a stressful job. I never want to be the guy who has to like watch all of the cameras and make sure people are not breaking into your house.
And I think adding to what you're doing, you're voyeuring this house, you are watching girls be kidnapped, you are killing vampire people?
They're called augurs.
Well, the vampires and the augurs, there's a lot going on here in this story. You're doing all this stuff. I can understand why, if you just look at the headline version of this game, you'd be like, we need a congressional hearing. This is terrible. I hear this Mortal Kombat, you punch a guy so hard his head explodes. Right?
Sure.
And the fact that this was the game they chose to be like, this is a travesty. When I remember sneaking on my computer as a kid to download and play Leisure Suit Larry, Love for Sale, a game where the whole point was like, I'm gonna bang this lady.
Do you bang the lady?
Oh yeah, you bang all the ladies. The whole point is you bang the ladies.
You just bang all the ladies.
Yeah, that's the point of the game, is Leisure Suit Larry goes around and point and clicks his way to banging ladies.
But he doesn't bang them. He
does.
goes into a room and like a dust cloud pops up, right? It's so funny that violence is the thing that made everyone upset, but now violence today is turned up to 1,000. Look at a new Mortal Kombat game and you have to change the color if you want to put it on your YouTube channel to green because it is buckets and buckets of blood.
Play Baldur's Gate. The other day, I had multiple sex scenes that showed everything.
Everything, and no one's gonna write a congressional thing about that.
No.
All the articles say it's a perfect game. It's wonderful to play.
Yeah, and I think it just shows culturally what people think about what changes. And it is interesting that this was made in '87, and it is campy and goofy and fun, and it is a game that is very slasher horror 80s movie vibe. And by 1992, people were like, ugh, no, it's telling kids to go kidnap girls, which is not at all what it is. You're the hero in the game.
The girls are the saviors of the game. The main girl, she has infiltrated this girl group to go after the vampires.
But there's no way that you're going to tell Congress, all right, so here's the deal, guys.
Right.
So like there's a girl hero, and these other girls, like you can help them live, but like it's tough because you got these guys who are evil, and you are working with Scat to go defeat the evil guys.
Scat.
And it's like, come on. There's no way you can explain that in Congress, so they're going to listen to you.
I bet the moment they came up with those video game ratings and slapped an M on this game, it sold 500,000 copies.
Well, it was because of this game and that time period that a lot of countries created a rating system. It was this game that made that happen. And gameplay-wise, it's hard to say that this is something that's going to like destroy the minds of the youth. It's a tough game to play that I don't know this is in any way a kid's game.
Yes, because there is the repetition of you need to learn the patterns of what's going on.
Yep.
There are what would you call it? Kill screens in the game.
Sure. It's a game where if you don't start immediately trying to solve the riddle of what the game is, and instead you're like, I want to watch these girls have a good time, or I want to see what the family's up to, you're automatically losing.
If you are watching the movie of this game, you have lost the game because most of the time you are going between the rooms, waiting for little squiggles, and the most difficult of the rooms is the roof. I missed so many guys on the roof because it was so hard to see.
Basic way to explain this game at its core is teenagers are disappearing at this lake house.
There is a lake house that is ran by vampires, and the vampires have set up a security system to protect themselves from the villains that are coming against them. Lesser vampires known as augurs that don't have enough blood in them to be full vampires, but are like halvesy vampires.
And so there's a bunch of traps everywhere in the house.
Traps all over the place. We're talking roof traps. We're talking trundle bed traps. We're talking stairs turn into a slide. We're talking hallway push traps. We're talking about the trap in the kitchen.
It's got all the traps.
All the traps.
This house is 90% trap.
It's a trap house, really. It's a trap house. They really should call it trap house.
You work with this SCAT team, which is...
SCAT stands for Special Control Attack Team. But grandfather Cox over here told us that in the 90s, it stood for Sega CD Attack Team. It's a terrible name. It's so silly that they put CD in the name of everything.
The game starts with a scene that is... I know I'm going to get some flack for this, but I don't care because it's accurate and true. Almost identical to every mission briefing in the show Stargate SG-1.
Oh, you're going to get so much hate for that one.
It is the exact same style of acting and the exact same style of camera work, and the only thing missing is Teal'c going, indeed, at the end of it is 100% very much. And so people have been reported missing, girls have been reported missing going to this house, and the SCAT team's like, yo, you're gonna help us solve this.
We've been able to hack into the system and you now have the controls.
And so those controls are hidden cameras, the various traps that are already in the house, and your job is to protect Kelly, who's this young girl who's been assigned to the SCAT team to infiltrate the house with the other girls.
She is an unreliable narrator. Do not follow her. She will tell you to do things and it's usually the wrong thing. You need to look at everybody else but her.
So when the briefing ends, like, okay, who's gonna man the traps? And they go, they do.
We have complete control of the cameras and the traps. But who operates that? They do.
Indeed.
I love that. I love that all the actors turn to the camera like, you're the hero in this story, kid.
Yeah, not the girl that you're gonna go protect, not the main lady, whoever this fake player is.
You have to protect her. There is multiple screens to look at of these girls and what's going on in the house. You can see the family. You can follow them. You could follow the girls. You could follow the weird augurs as they creep around the house. And there really is no objective other than keep people alive.
There's one objective in the game. The vampires will periodically change the color code of the security system. And the whole time I was playing, I was like, oh, I gotta watch out for it. I think they only change it like twice. I think it's like 2 or 3 times at most. If you are watching the story, you are actively losing the game.
It takes roughly 30 minutes to beat the game without watching the story.
Right.
You spend most of the time just like scanning rooms, and it's not fun. It's not fun to try and win the game. It's just not.
Which is one of the paradoxes of the game. The game is fun and enjoyable in its campiness, but the actual execution of the game is not fun because you don't get to see any of the fun stuff.
Yeah, the story's fun. The movie inside this thing is fun.
Right.
But the game is not a game that is fun to play because you have to know the code, which lets you access everything. So you have to monitor that. You then have to find the augurs and wait until they're right at the trap and spring the trap. Too early, too late, they'll just walk right by it.
And if too many augurs get in the house, SCAT team tells you you failed the game.
Right. And so you have to keep that going and also not accidentally get the SCAT team.
Right. There are multiple times when they are then interacting with the people in the house that you can then kill them, and that's also an instant fail.
There's a lot of fail states, but also there's a lot of ways to just sit back, relax, and watch. The game has the exact same vibe as playing Her Story.
Sure.
Except it is you press play, and it would be as if every video in Her Story played at once, and you had to watch as much as you could before the end.
FMV games have come a long way from this game coming out, and you can see where they have benefited from this game failing.
Yeah, this is a game where you just want to experience the story, but it purposefully doesn't let you if you want to succeed. And so there's a lot of scenes that you'll miss.
All of the scenes where they talk in unison were my favorite, where the two girls go, augurs in the kitchen, loved it. I love when the girls go, party. Any of the lines that are in unison are great. If we're going to get into this, let's get into the story of the game.
Sure.
So we start with the police force. We then go to the house. I guess we're like Emilio Estevez in Mission Impossible. We're just in an elevator shaft somewhere. We then see the family, a very rich, well-to-do East Coast family comes home.
East Coast is interesting. I don't know if I would say that. I would say every person in this game is American as shit, except the mom and dad who are like, darling.
But he's like mid-Atlantic. He's like a fake country between America and England that doesn't exist.
Whatever he is.
Now, they need to go visit some friends because they're on some hard times right now. And they have 3 kids.
So there's the son, and then the daughter, and then Shades guy.
Shades guy.
Shades guy is the third one.
Shades guy, when I saw Shades at night, because I wear my sunglasses at night sometimes, I knew that this was a vampire game.
You didn't know this was a vampire game?
I had no idea what the game was. I didn't understand who I was with the control doing all of this. I saw that scene, but I didn't understand who are these people coming into the house. I was like, oh, they're the villains. No. The whole house is a night trap.
I guess they don't really explain to you up front that it's vampires. It's straight up just creepy guys in cat suits stalking around a house, and there's girls.
And you can start killing them before they even tell you who they are. You get a couple in the bedroom, you get a couple in the hallway, 2 in that double trap in the upstairs hallway, even before the people show up.
The mom and dad are going to leave for the night, and it's very mysterious and obviously creepy, and the son and Shades are like, yeah, don't worry, we'll watch after the girls when they get here. And the daughter's like, I've invited my friends, mother.
She's wearing a Victorian dress from 1872. I knew something was up
Right,
then.
obviously something's wrong. When the other girls arrive, they look very 80s.
So 80s.
They're all tropes.
Jesse, they wore those outfits because they're going to do night swimming as soon as they get settled in for the night.
Yeah.
Hey, come on, everyone. Let's go down to the lake.
That's why Megan looks like Madonna for some reason.
For some reason.
You know, they all have their different looks. And then Kelly, right? Kelly is the girl who's working with you.
Yeah, she's the one who will talk to the camera and be like, Control, you gotta be on me.
And then for the next however long it takes you to go through this, which is, you know, maybe 30 minutes to an hour, you just have to go and watch these girls have a party. And it can range from a full-on singing dance number.
Sure.
To 2 girls in a bathroom talking about animal cruelty.
Sure.
To a bunch of girls in a bedroom being like, I think he likes you. To random moments where they're just very clearly talking without a script, right? Just having a conversation.
Yeah, I guarantee you there were some like candid conversations that they just caught. We're like, no, that was pretty good. Keep it in the game.
Yeah, you guys seem real natural.
You then follow them all over the house. They go upstairs, downstairs, outside, trying to like get their lay of the land. They eventually, the 2 girls in the kitchen find the dead body draining of blood, and that's what then starts off
the
vampire.
Out, and they run back up the stairs. Shout out to Megan for being a real G. Runs up the stairs like, it's crazy here. Joining the girls, though, is little brother.
Little brother looks something right out of an extra on the Wonder Years.
And so he has his own little misadventure.
Yep.
Where he stumbles around discovering all sorts of stuff about the house. And if you follow him, you learn all sorts of crazy things.
I, again, don't know the story. I know that I don't have to watch him because he kills the guy on the stairs, and then he goes to the back door, he goes to the kitchen, they go, Augers. You don't have to kill the first guy because that's his friend who just has the outfit and was like goofing with them.
Right.
And then he kills one guy in the hallway, and then you have to get the guy immediately after that, and then the kid runs away, and you're good with that.
At the same time, there is this weird cops trying to get in. So Scat's trying to get in.
Yeah.
Question. Was the dude in the Hawaiian shirt who faked a Jamaican accent, was he with Scat? No, he was just a normal guy.
This is Collins. Here goes nothing, Chief.
Just no heroics, huh?
Count on it. I think we should give him the old Jamaican number, huh, Chief?
Hello. So sorry to disturb you like this. So sorry to barge in. But I was wondering if maybe you had seen my board.
And then he goes in and he gives a shitty Jamaican accent and he goes, why you wear those shades at night, eh?
Why you wear those shades at night, eh?
Yeah, well, will there be anything else, sir?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I was fighting augers on the upstairs. I was nowhere near that Jamaican guy. I wish I could have spent more time with that Jamaican guy.
I love that Jamaican guy. I also love all the actors in this who get amazing lines of dialogue.
Who's that?
I don't know.
Don't make me use this, Tony.
After a while, Mom and Dad return home.
Yes.
And this is sort of the climax of the whole thing where we know there are vampire creatures or something here. They're draining blood. And we know that something's up at the house. And in the living room, Mom, Dad, 2 of the SCAT officers, plus Kelly, plus then the brother walks in.
Yes, that is correct.
The big reveal where they're like, ha ha ha, we are the vampires.
We've been vampires all along. You didn't understand that we're actually vampires?
And they're like, by the way, these augurs need blood. And they're like vampire bitches.
See, this was a scene I saw. I saw this scene. I knew all about the augurs being weird vampires.
Yeah, and they're like, well, we cannot be killed. And then the augurs grab one of the dudes. They shoot the vampires and like light comes out of them.
Yeah,
It's crazy. But during that scene, one of the scat members says, my favorite line, when they reveal they're vampires, he says,
Vampires, you gotta be jabbing me. Let's cuff these freaks and drag them downtown. Hold it.
That is such a good line of dialogue.
These are the parts of the game that are charming, and there are things that I enjoyed about the game, but they were not intended to be fun. This is them making each other laugh on set, and it comes across, and that's the stuff that I enjoyed about the game, but the actual game, What is going on?
Gameplay's
nonsense.
Gameplay's crazy. It's all over the place. Again, it feels like one of those things where in order to do it well, you have to forego caring about anything except for winning, which in a game like this defeats the purpose, because it's supposed to be a game where you enjoy the goofy antics and the fact that you're like, I'm helping out. It's the same thing as when you watch a Five Nights at Freddy's player who's just starting versus one who's very good. And a just starting player is a little scared, and they're watching like one camera a little too long, and they're listening to all the voice messages, and they're sitting there getting like a little worked up, versus a person who knows what they're doing, and they're just camera to camera to camera to camera to camera to camera. All right, skip that voice, camera to camera to camera. Sure, that's the optimal way to play, and awesome, I'm glad you're nailing it, but also, I think it defeats the purpose of what it's supposed to be, and it kind of kills the joy behind what it is. And I would never recommend to anyone to try and beat this game. Just play it.
What's that video game in the arcade from the 80s where you were a knight and you'd have to do it correctly or you died?
Dragon's Lair.
This game should have been like Dragon's Lair. We should have been able to spend time with these scenes, and then an augur attacks and we have to protect it. You either have to go left or right. Because what it does is it forces you to never spend time with the main characters. I kept looking outside to flip the guy off the roof.
I think the point is it's supposed to be, I am the operator, and I help work with Scat, and I am going to save Kelly and these girls. And that's supposed to be what the game is, but in reality, it's not fun. The fun is what they created and before they gamified it.
Yeah, there's a real fun Looney Tunes aspect to the traps that I wish they would have leaned into more.
Literally, a guy gets flung through the air multiple times. You can do it, and it's hilarious every time. The thing missing was the
that was missing. There was never a Wilhelm scream. It felt like in the 90s, all of the movies where kids are fighting off bandits, whether that be Home Alone,
yeah.
But it could have also been like the Three Ninjas, right? They're like fighting those guys, but it never got to that fun level. Like, I never want to play this game again. I'll show somebody online all of my favorite scenes. That's fine.
And that's the thing, is people have favorite scenes, but the gameplay is whatever. It is the worst part of the game, and that I think is why people remember this game. It's, again, in the zeitgeist, it is a game that people talk about to this day, but it's a game where no one's like, gotta play it, dude, you gotta play it, because the play sucks. But what it is, the story that's there, the goofiness of it, is what people remember, and that's what's fun about it. The way that the 90s changed the kids versus evil adults thing, this game has that campy 80s vibe. And a few short years after that, we were in full Home Alone world, where if this was done, like you said, in a Home Alone way, where these girls are like running up the stairs and they're trying to get away from these guys, and you press a button that triggers the swinging paint cans that can knock the guys down, or you press a button that makes the doors hot, and so now you have to like lure them to the door. Things like that would have changed what this game was and would have been real fun.
The game you're pitching me, I want Macaulay Culkin back. Let's do the Home Alone 4, the video game, where he's like, yo, I can't be home, but you gotta protect my kids.
What if we just rebooted Night Trap with Macaulay Culkin as Kelly's character.
Not the Jamaican guy. Okay, totally understood. I feel like he could do either one.
Or he's Vampire Dad. Either way, I'm here for it.
He'd be such a good vampire dad.
Either way, I'm here for it. And we just reboot it, but we make it that Home Alone thing, because that's what I think is missing, is you don't get to experience anything about these girls if you want to win. And that's a huge issue with the game, because you're like, yo, in order to win, you have to not care, bro. And that sucks.
The player in this video game experiences like a day job. Because you get fired. You get fired if you do a bad job. Instead of getting to enjoy the fun world, which is fun. It's weird. It's fun. The vampires have weird dog catcher weapons with needles and stuff in them. That's all fun, but you never get to really play in any of that stuff.
And what sucks is that those needle dog catcher things and the goofy traps and the upside down bleeding a person thing was all used to say this game is violent and terrible and look how they're torturing these women and stuff. But it is so goofy and campy and no different than any of the many terrible movies that existed.
Yep.
They're way worse.
Yep.
This is solid B, like acting and props and stuff. There's no way that it's on the same page. And the fact that Mortal Kombat, people are impaled, and we give a lot of credit to Mortal Kombat for making video games more adult and more able to say, oh yeah, if they can do that, why can't we do this thing? This game is the exact same thing. This game was like, hey, we're gonna make it a little sexy, and we're gonna make it a little goofy, but also a little violent. We're gonna take risks, and we're gonna do something different and strange. And it let people say, oh, video games can literally be anything. Video games are art, dude. And
yeah.
And over time, you can see from dude drawing stick figure in a cave or the outline of his hand to truly beautiful Sistine Chapel paintings of such immenseness that we're just like, whoa, to the point where a computer can do it. That is a massive span of growth and change based on what it originally was. And I think video games as an art form have grown in a way that looking back at something like this, it seems goofy to us because, now it's so much different.
What a small world. What a crazy time you were living in when a video game was being talked about in Congress, right? Like there was nothing else going on. You didn't want to talk about the first Iraq war? Like this is what's being talked about on the nightly news?
Yeah, there was a lot that definitely 100% should have been talked about in the 90s. The AIDS crisis, like there was a lot of stuff.
Sure, absolutely.
And just like today, if something goes wrong, everyone looks for something to be like, this is the cause of what's wrong with our kids and our youth. And yeah, it was music. It's all part of that same thing. And there's always people looking for a scapegoat rather than like, yo, what if you just, were a responsible parent? What if you did your job and raised your kid?
Stop that. Stop that. That's too much. As you can see, Your Honor, this is not just a normal video game. This is a game that has all the bells and whistles of a modern masterpiece waiting to be unfolded like you. Yeah, there's some vampires and blood sucking, but there's also good home American values in here. And that, sir, we rest our case.
How the hell was I in that?
That's a very good question. For that answer, let me show you Exhibit D.